Hello, this is Deborah with Black Education TV, and I'm going to be talking about the South Africa effect. That's what I want to call it, the South Africa effect. Some of you may have been following the things that are taking place in South Africa right now, but I'm going to give my spin on things, okay? I call it the South Africa effect. What do you call it when a group of people feel marginalized? They can't get jobs. Their neighborhoods are run down. Their children are run down and hungry in some cases, being discriminated against. They can't seem to get a foothold on life. And all of this is because of their skin color. Their skin color is preventing them from getting ahead in life. No jobs, and they feel like they're being unfairly treated. They feel like they're being abused in some cases, all because of their skin color. Things are happening to them, and people are looking the other way, like certain crimes happen against them, and law enforcement does absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, law enforcement, in some cases, ignore them or side with the criminal, the person who has perpetrated things against these people. And they feel like because of their skin color, these things are happening to them. And they just feel awful about it. You see, they feel awful about it, and they feel helpless. Like, if I can't depend on law enforcement, who do I go to? Who do I turn to? Nobody is helping us in these situations. This is what these people feel. And they are feeling like the whole society and the system is against them, and that it's stacked against them, that they have nowhere to turn. And so what they're doing is they're feeling like, well, man, we gotta get weapons to protect ourselves because, nobody's here to help us or protect us. We can't call the police because they're not on our sides either. They're siding with people who have a different skin color than us. People who look more like them. That is the South Africa effect, family, where you have people who feel marginalized, like they can't get jobs, like they can't get protection from law enforcement. They feel like people of different colors are against them. Law enforcement are for these people because they look like them, and they just feel helpless. I know I'm repeating a lot of what I'm saying, but I'm trying to make a point here. There are people who live in South Africa who feel that way, like their race is against them. Like, because of their race, they can't get ahead. Because of their race, they can't get protection. Because of their race, they're being attacked. Because of their race, they can't move into certain neighborhoods. Because of their race, they can't forge ahead. Because the system in which they live in is stacked against them. That is what we call the South Africa effect. Now, for many of my viewers, if you are not up on what's going on in South Africa, you'll say, well, what is she talking about? This is for those of you who don't know what's happening in South Africa. You may say, well, you've just described so-called black people here in the U.S. That's what most of you would think, right? When what I have described are white people in South Africa, some areas of South Africa. That's what I've just described to you. Because the South Africa effect is this, that the tables have been turned. It's like a mirror image of what's happening here in the U.S. to our people. That's what's happening in some cases in South Africa. Not all, but some. Because you do have those whites that were rich in South Africa who are not experiencing that because they are there on their own dime, right? And they do still own the majority of the land in South Africa. But those who were part of the working class, who depended on the jobs that used to be all theirs. You see, when the system was being controlled by them, All of the jobs were given to them. All of the benefits were given to them. All of the luxuries that they experience in European nations were given to them. But now that control has been taken, the tables have been turned. So they are experiencing what so-called black people here in the U.S. experience, where they're being discriminated against, police are against them, and all kinds of things are taking place. They are feeling that over in South Africa. They're feeling what so-called black people feel here in the U.S. You see, the tables have been turned. Now, it doesn't feel good. You see all kinds of videos going up where they're feeling very threatened. They're feeling afraid and frightened and all of those things. Now, what we are asking of the world is to now see, now that your fellow white citizens are going through that in South Africa, that is what we have been going through for centuries. Now, I know it doesn't do any good to try to open up your eyes as to what we've been experiencing. Some of you have taken note, and some of you do see it, and some of you despise those things, and you're not for it. But silence has never helped anyone, you see. But what we are starting to see, in which I believe this is prophesied, the scripture said that the earth helped the woman. When the sea of red came after the woman to swallow her up, the earth helped the woman. You see, we're starting to see more and more to where Gentiles of many nations are starting to speak up and say, look, what you are doing to these so-called black people is wrong. It's sinful. It's wicked. You see, I don't think it should be condoned in any case, whether it's here in America or South Africa. But for some of you, I see a lot of so-called white people rising up saying, we've got to help our South African brothers and sisters, only referring to those that are white. You see, that's the problem. You only want to see discrimination and hatred if you feel like it's being directed towards you. But you have sat around, you've participated in, and have been complicit with it happening to other people. Whether it's black people, Asians, Muslims, you've sat around and you've watched this and have participated, whether directly or indirectly. And you have to understand that there is a price to pay for that type of hypocrisy, especially those of you who call yourselves Christians. Christianity is your strong delusion, and it has caused you to ignore injustices over here. And you can only see it when it happens to you. What the Most High is doing, He's causing the chickens to come home to roost. He is going to allow those things that you have done to come and fall upon your own head. And it's going to be at the hands of your own people. See, that's the thing. That is the thing. I remember watching a few documentaries where they're talking about certain chemicals that are being sprayed and dumped, and all these things are taking place. And even with the fracking, how you have those who have agreed to allow their land to be fracked, and then they take the money, right? But then months and years later, they're getting sick. This one guy showed where he could actually take a match or a lighter and put it to his faucet, and it all goes up in flames because fumes and gases are coming through his faucet. And they showed how his body is deteriorating. He's getting sick, and how his teeth are falling out, his hair is falling out. And we're talking about a white guy too. But when certain things were taking place and happening against other races, black people, no one cared. No one cared. But now that these companies and corporations are starting to target you all, Monsanto taking farms away from white farmers, and farms that have been in their lands for hundreds of years or decades at least. Some of these people are starting to feel that crunch, and they're like, oh no, how could you do this to me? How could you do this? I'm white, right? And what is happening is the chickens are coming home to roost. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So it goes back to what I was saying before in one video, that the powers that be don't care about you or me. But you all have tricked yourselves into believing that they do. They've actually tricked you into believing that they do. That's what I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to say that we should ignore what white people are doing to black people. I wasn't saying that at all. Some of you got me wrong on that. What I was trying to say is that the same people that have targeted us are now targeting you. You were never an ally you were an ally, but you were never a part of their grand scheme. They were never out to protect you. They were using you to hurt us to further their cause. You understand what I'm trying to say here? So the elite have been using middle to low class whites to harm us to further their cause because they don't care about you or us. You see, this is why they are now starting to target you and allow things to happen to you, taking your land through Monsanto and other ways, and doing things that is hurting your land as well and causing you to get sick and all of that. That's because you were tricked and fooled into believing that they cared about you all because you all look the same, and that is not the case. And you are starting to see that more and more. You are starting to see that more and more. And it kind of reminds me of this. Take an elite family, say the Queen's family, Prince Charles and all of them, and just imagine what one of their pictures look like where they're all gathered together in their royal garments in the royal Buckingham Palace. Now they take their picture, right? Now their picture is up on a wall. And let's put another picture next to their picture. I'm going to say some hillbillies from Virginia, okay, with the ears sticking out and the teeth and neck and all this kind of stuff. You know, just compare these two pictures. We're going to put them next to each other, right? And then let's take some other pictures of other elites and other white people who are not so elite, but they would be classified as lower class or struggling hillbillies or whatever you want to call them, rednecks, or whatever, right? Now you put these pictures together. Do you think that the people that live in Buckingham Palace would like to be compared to the people who live in the hills of Virginia, who has an aunt that's their mother too? Do you think that the elite whites, like the Bush family, associates themselves with these people right here? Do you think that they feel they're the same class and that they're going to stick out, put their head on their necks out on the line to protect this group right here? Do you think the Bush family or the royal families and all of these elite families, do you think that they actually care about you? You're delusional if you think that they care about you, but they will use you. They will use you to do your, what you call redneck things against so-called black people with your Confederate flags. Now notice, the Bush family don't run around with Confederate flags. Now, their actions against black people are what they are. They're the same actions, right? But they do this because they believe themselves to be superior. But they allow you to do the things that you do, not because they think you're superior, but because they are using you to terrorize us. Because you think that somehow you have the same footing, or that, now, not all of you believe this or think this, but most of you think they're white, I'm white, so you're in the white class or the right class. That's what you believe. But these same people don't give a hoot about you either. And that's what you don't get. That is the illusion of white supremacy, to where you just don't understand that the powers that be don't care about you either. You just don't get it. You see, that's why there has been no rescuing of those so-called white people in South Africa. There has been no rescuing of them. There's not going to be anyone who's going to swoop in and save the day. The discrimination that they are experiencing there as white people is the same discrimination that black people experience all around the world. And if there was some type of real true white supremacy going on with all of you collectively, then how come there are no white nations stepping in to help the so-called white people in South Africa who feel like they're being marginalized. That is what I call the South Africa effect. Just like my people just don't get why they're in the situations that they're in, guess what? You all just don't get it either. You just don't get it. And with that, I will say shalom.